There's a small green leaf that grows on a low, sprawling plant native to Paraguay and southern Brazil. You can chew one fresh off the stem, and within a second, your whole mouth fills with sweetness. Not a faint sweetness, an intense one. That single leaf is roughly 30 times sweeter than table sugar, and the refined compound inside it is between 200 and 300 times sweeter than sugar. It needs no bees to pollinate a sugar crop, no cane field, no refinery, no boiling vats. It grows in a pot on a balcony. And for most of the 20th century, you could not legally sell it as a sweetener in the United States. That last part is true, and it is strange, and almost nobody who buys the plant today understands why. So, before you hear another version of this story dressed up as a conspiracy, let me give you the real one. Because the real one is more useful, and frankly, more interesting. The plant is called Stevia rebaudiana. The Guarani people of Paraguay called it cahi, which translates roughly to sweet herb. They had been using it to sweeten bitter tea for hundreds of years before any European wrote it down. A Swiss botanist named Bertoni documented it for science at the end of the 19th century. And the sweetness everyone was tasting turned out not to be sugar at all. That is the first thing most videos get wrong, so let me be precise. Stevia does not produce sugar. If it produced sugar, it would feed your bloodstream the way cane sugar does. It does not. The sweetness comes from a family of compounds called Steviol glycosides. The two main ones are called stevioside and rebaudioside A. Your tongue has sweet receptors, and these molecules fit into those receptors and switch them on, hard. But your gut cannot break the molecules down for energy the way it breaks down sugar, so they pass through. That is why stevia is described as having essentially no calories and almost no effect on blood glucose. You get the signal of sweetness without the sugar behind it. That is the entire trick, and it is not a trick at all. It is just a plant that learned to taste sweet without paying the metabolic price. Now here's the part of this channel I want you to expect every time. I'm not going to hand you a miracle and walk away. If you find these forgotten plants useful, the single best thing you can do is subscribe, so the next one finds you. That is the only thing I will ask of you up front. Let me come back to the strange history, because this is where the suppression rumors come from. For most of the 1980s and 1990s, the United States Food and Drug Administration did not allow stevia to be sold as a sweetener. This is a real fact, and it is the seed of every cover-up story you have ever seen about this plant. But the reason was not a sugar industry plot. The reason was a paperwork standard. Under United States law, a new food additive has to be shown to be safe before it goes on the market. And in those years, the safety data on stevia that regulators were willing to accept simply did not exist yet. Some early animal studies had raised questions that later, larger studies did not confirm. So the agency did something cautious and bureaucratic. It restricted import of the leaf as a sweetener while the science caught up. People who wanted a villain read that restriction as proof of a conspiracy. What actually happened next does not fit a conspiracy at all. In 1995, the agency revised its position to allow stevia to be sold as a dietary supplement ingredient. Then, international scientists did the slow work. In 2008, after reviewing the purified compound, the agency raised no objection to high-purity steviol glycosides being used as a general sweetener in food. And the moment that happened, the largest beverage companies on Earth jumped in. Coca-Cola and Cargill had already developed a purified version. PepsiCo developed its own. These are not the actions of an industry trying to bury a plant. This is an industry that waited for the regulatory door to open and then ran through it. So if anyone tells you stevia was erased from American gardens by a corporate plot, you can let that go. It was never illegal to grow. It was never illegal to chew a leaf from your own pot. What was restricted for a while was selling extracts as a food sweetener, and that restriction is long gone. There's one genuine nuance worth knowing, and I want to be honest about it. Even today, the agency draws a line between the purified compound and the raw whole leaf. The high-purity extracts are cleared for use in food. The crude whole leaf and crude extracts are still not formally cleared as food additives because the safety reviews were done on the purified material. That is a regulatory technicality about commercial sale. It does not stop you from growing the plant at home and using your own leaves in your own kitchen, which gardeners across the country do every single day. So let us talk about the plant itself, because this is the reason I made the video. Stevia is a tender perennial. In most of the United States, it is grown as an annual, or brought indoors over winter, because it does not tolerate hard frost. It likes warmth, it likes sun, and it likes well-drained soil that stays lightly moist. It is happiest in the kind of weather that suits a tomato. You can start it from a small plant from a nursery, which is the easy way. Starting from seed is possible but frustrating, because the germination rate is famously low and uneven. That is one reason most home growers buy a young plant and take cuttings from it later. The plant grows into a low bush around 2 feet tall. You harvest by pinching the leaves, and the more you pinch, the bushier it grows, the same way basil responds. The sweetness in the leaf is strongest just before the plant flowers. Once it sets flowers, the leaves turn a little more bitter. So many growers pinch the flower buds off to keep the leaf sweet. The leaves can be used fresh, dropped straight into tea, or they can be dried and crushed into a green powder you keep in a jar. There is one honest catch you should hear before you fall in love with the idea. Stevia carries a faint aftertaste that some people describe as slightly bitter or licorice-like. The purified rubidioside A in commercial products is the part with the least of that aftertaste, which is why companies prize it. In your own leaf, you can soften it by harvesting before flowering, by drying gently, and by using a little less than you think you need. Many home growers also pair it with a touch of mint or lemon balm, which masks the edge and turns it into something genuinely pleasant. That is the difference between a plant that is a novelty and a plant that earns a permanent place in your kitchen. And this is exactly where a short video runs into its limit, and I want to be straight with you about that. Telling you the plant is sweet is easy. Turning that plant into something you actually use in your kitchen takes detail that does not fit here. The drying method that protects the sweet compounds instead of cooking them off, the ratio for replacing sugar in a recipe, which is not 1-to-1 and trips up almost everyone the first time, how to take cuttings so one plant becomes 10, how to overwinter it so you are not buying a new plant every spring. I have put all of that step by step into a written guide, and the link for it is in the description below if you want the full method in one place, but you do not need to buy anything to start. You need one plant, a sunny spot, and a pot. That alone will give you a living sweetener on your windowsill that asks for almost nothing in return. No bees, no field, no refinery, just a leaf that figured out how to taste sweeter than sugar without being sugar at all. That is the kind of forgotten, overlooked, quietly useful plant this whole channel exists to bring back. So if this was worth 10 minutes of your time, subscribe, and tell me in the comments what you would sweeten first. And I will see you in the next one.